ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Tiemann. This is the award-winning Fan Show. It is Wednesday, one of my favorite days of the week, just because you never know what's going to happen on a Wednesday. Last Wednesday, we had technical difficulties and had to scrap Thursday altogether and repost that Wednesday episode, salvaging what we could with Will Bales, which sounded great, and then, of course, Christopher Gilchrist. But that's not the kind of thing that you want when it comes to you never know what's going to happen. Yeah, you want something like, oh my God, this person phoned in and they went off, and then it was hilarious because they said this thing about the stuff, and it was great. So, you never know. You never know. It could happen. There's a lot of people have my number. They're welcome to call and try to get in during my broadcast time. I think that'd be hilarious, but otherwise, I have it pretty well scheduled here. We don't have a phone-in line simply because I'm only an hour, and I've got a lot to get through in that hour. Tonight is no exception. I've got not one but two special guests lined up because it is a double shot of robot fighting time this evening. This is the continuation of our weekly Battlebots segment right here on the Fan Show. You get the best exclusives of everything metal and rubber, I guess. Metal and more metal is what you get here on the Fan Show every Wednesday. And so Al Kindle, driver of Blacksmith, a bot that has kind of captured my little kid imagination. And then Edward Robinson of Sharko, a bot that when I was down there at the tapings, I full-on fanboyed out for, because this thing, Sharko is awesome. And Ed is just as awesome himself. So very excited to have the two drivers for the two bots that I personally am a big fan of watching them in action. Huge is another one. I already got to talk to those guys, and Huge has been doing quite well. In fact, that's what we were going to talk about tonight that we didn't get around to on last week's headlines. So let's get to it. The headlines that are not BattleBots related is that Richard Sherman has been approved to do individual activity for the 49ers camp, which as a 49ers fan, that's great news to hear that he will be healthy and hopefully up to speed come kickoff. As a 49ers fan, it's also odd to hear because this would be news that you'd be like, oh, if it was any other year, you know, with the Seahawks. So still mixed bag of emotions. Like I said, I told Mark Istook, I'm giving myself 5 games. If he hasn't grown on me in 5 games, then it's probably just not going to take, you know. And I think if the 49ers are winning, and he's had little to do with their winning ways, I'll tolerate him, right? Okay, you contribute, you're playing, you're out there, right? So that'll be good. I'll be like, you can stay. If they're losing, though, even if it's not his fault, I'm still going to blame him because I'm going to feel like he's cursed the team. If he balls out, though, if he leads the league in interceptions come Game 5 for the 49ers, we may have a different discussion. I can't say I'm going to go and buy an authentic Sherman jersey that is red and gold, but I don't know. It's tough. It really is. In other 49er news, kind of, not so much, a little bit, sort of, Reggie Bush won his lawsuit against the St. Louis Rams at the time. Yeah, that's how far back that goes. So there's a throwback for you. Way back Wednesday, when the 49ers played, he was on the 49ers, Reggie Bush played for the 49ers. They were in St. Louis against the Rams, and he ran out of bounds onto their hard concrete floor and tore his ACL, and he is getting paid to the tune of $12.6 million. And I don't think this comes out of Kroenke's pocket. I think he got the hell out of Dodge, and the arena has to pay for it, however they do that. I'm not sure of the specifics of it. I just saw that it came across my news feed yesterday. because we didn't hear really anything more about it until after, he said he was going to do it. Zach Martin agrees to an $84 million extension with the Cowboys. Apparently Landry lacked a good relationship with QB Tannehill. I don't know if there's any receiver that has a good relationship with Tannehill. Let's see here. Saints are going to sign running back West. So I don't know what that means for Ingram or Kamara. Bengals tight end Tyler Eifert's camp status is in question. Man, he is so good when he's healthy, but man, is he just not healthy a lot. And he's probably going to end up being that player of this generation, the one that could be so great, but they just couldn't stay healthy. Like Derrick Rose of the Bulls. I don't know how great Derrick Rose could have been, but he was just never healthy enough to really see his full potential. I think we saw flashes of it. And I don't know what that means for a person's legacy. Like, man, you could be so good if you were healthy. That's like me in my profession. Man, you would be great if you were on the national airwaves. Like, okay, so like, does that mean that I'm actually great, or that's the one thing that's prohibiting me from being great? It's a tough call. Hackenberg clears the waiver wire after he declined to proceed with the trade to the Raiders. Now, I believe the Jets still got the draft picks out of it, but he is now a free agent. And then Ravens are tinkering with Lamar Jackson in 2 QB sets. Say what? And then, of course, Andrew Luck was seen out there playing. Yes, that Andrew Luck. So we'll see. Jimmy G on Richard Sherman says he's like a coach out there on the field. But Jimmy has to say stuff like that so that people buy into this with everybody else. Who knows what he really thinks? Yeah, that really about does it. So Battlebots, that's what we were talking about, right? Back to robot fighting time. So Battlebots, the last fight card that we had was a pretty good one. The main event was a little bit disappointing, though. So son of Waiachi, who now the son of the driver, F.A.N, took over the reins. He lost to Brutus because son of Waiachi, one of those bots that cannot self-write. So Brutus got in there, took care of business. The Four Horsemen, which only 3 bots of the 4 have competed at a time, which is it's a unique strategy, and they lost to Al Kindle's Blacksmith. I'm going to ask him about the Four Horsemen and what he thinks of having multiple bots that meet the weigh-in and having multiple drivers out there. But he went out there, he swung it, he did amazing. Blacksmith is so much fun to watch out there when it's a good match like that. But he took down 3 mini bots, and it was great. Great TV. Minotaur won over Hypothermia. Hypothermia just... I like the team, I like the guys, I like the concept, but really it's not going to work against bots like Minotaur, and that concept really just isn't going to go very far in the current pool of bots that we have, like Minotaur, Icewave, Tombstone, Yeti even, Huge, Blacksmith. The ones that have the plows that push the other bots around and smash them into the walls, I get that. You're using your speed and your strength to your advantage. It's like a defensive or an offensive lineman not allowing sacks or leading the league in sacks, depending on which side of the ball you're on. Like, that's their skill, and they use it well. They're not a wide receiver who's getting clocked by their speed or their ability to jump vertically into the air. They're not graded like a quarterback who has to read the defense, go through his progressions, and then, of course, make the throw accurately. They have to shove people around, and they have to, break out of blocks and get to the quarterback in a very limited window. And, of course, you have to block and prevent somebody from getting to your quarterback in, again, a very limited window. So the pusher bots, the ones with the plows, I like them because I think that the driver's skill is very much on showcase there. But if you're a push bot with a plow and you have a clamp because you want to try to grab and grapple and drag around other bots, it falls short on me because there's just not it's not entertaining, which I know shouldn't matter, but the other side of it is that it just doesn't, it's hard to clamp onto some of these bots. They all have very unique shapes and styles. So Hypothermia, maybe back to the drawing board. Free shipping was very entertaining to watch. It set itself on fire, and Huge had a big field day with them getting another win. So Huge is undefeated. They found themselves back into the weekly top 10, which we'll talk about. And then Ice Wave, knockout against Yeti. I did not see that one coming. There was some words exchanged afterwards because of a late hit by Ice Wave, who they claim they didn't know that was happening. But driver of Yeti, who I'd like to have on, Greg Gibson, upset at Mark for that. So some tensions there, right? And the moment, of course, that you've all been waiting for, we've got your power rankings for the week, the NAL, the IFL, and then your weekly top 10 for Battlebots. So let's go through the NAL first, which is at number 6, the Lehigh Valley Steelhawks still at 0-7. Number 5, the Maine Mammoths at 1-7. And number 4, the Massachusetts Pirates at 6-3. No one in the bottom 3 has moved since last week. However, there was some moving and shaking in the top 3. Number 3, down 2 spots from last week. So there will be a new number 1. That is the Jacksonville Sharks at 6-4. Number 2, the Columbus Lions at 5-2, up 1 from last week. And new number 1, that's right, you guessed it, it is the one and only Carolina Cobras. Billy Back was not short for comment last night. Very entertaining episode. Had some words for Amir. They're good friends, and we'll see about getting Amir on tomorrow night to retort and answer back to comments made by Coach Back. So that's your NAL. Your IFL top weekly power rankings are the Blizzard down 1 from last week at 2-11. That'll probably be how they finish. I mean, they could be 3-11 or 2-12, but they will probably finish at the bottom of the heap. Number 5, Cedar Rapids Titans down 1 from last week at 3-10. And then the Nebraska Danger, 4-9, up 2 spots because despite the fact that they're still on a losing streak, they did fall ass backwards into the playoffs, clinching the 4th playoff spot, and they will be on the road no matter how this last week shakes out. So they're going to travel somewhere, Sioux Falls, Iowa, or Arizona, and take on either the number 3 Arizona Rattlers, down 1 spot from last week, maybe the number 2 Iowa Barnstormers, down 1 from last week, or the new number 1 spot, which belongs to, that's right, you guessed it, the Sioux Falls Storm, up 2 spots from last week. We have a 3-way tie in the top 3, 10-3, 10-3, 10-3, and all 4 playoff spots have been claimed, but it is their seeding and their order, who plays where, that we have to decide this week, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Your BattleBots weekly top 10, though, that's the fun one, right? This is getting more and more complicated every week. Blacksmith is number 10. That's right. They are back in the weekly top 10 after their week. The last time they were ranked, they were number 7 after week 1, episode 1. Number 9 is Sawblaze, down 1. Number 8 is Monsoon, down 1 from last week. Number 7 is Warhawk, down from last week. Number 6 is Huge. They're back in the top 10. Last time they were ranked, they were number 8 after week 2. Number 5 is Minotaur, the first time that they have been on the top 10, in the top 5. Last time they were ranked number 8. Week 1. Then number 4 is Bite Force, up 1 from last week. Number 3 is Endgame, no change there. Number 2, Ice Wave, up 2 from the last one, knocking out Yeti, who will not find themselves in the top 10 this week. And still, your number 1 bot, Tombstone, who has yet to fall from the number 1 spot in 5 episodes now. So we're going to talk to Al Kindle, Edward Robinson. Don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more of the Fan Show coming up right after this. You're listening to the Fan Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's The F.A.N. Show!
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Ranazisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons. Like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo. Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again. So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right? Yeah. And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com, or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Joining me, making their debut on the F.A.N. Show to lead off this double shot of robot fighting time is the driver of Blacksmith, Al Kindle. How you doing, Al?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a pleasure, man. Like I said at the top of the show, you and Sharko and Huge are like my three favorite bots right now, and all for different reasons. I think that when it comes to the sport, and yes, I will call it a sport, the sport that is Battlebots, that you have your designs that work, and then you have your designs that are a bit outside the box and still work, and I think yours is one of them. I love it when the hammer works and it's out there, and you're a hell of a driver too, which helps. But what do you think, what was the inspiration behind Blacksmith, and how close have you been to sort of adapting with what we see from a Minotaur, a Yeti, or a Tombstone?
Well, when we first started talking about applying for, this is way back when we saw season 1 make its debut, or we heard it was going to be on the air, we started thinking about what type of bot should we apply with, and we were worried about just getting accepted to begin with. So we figured we don't want to just go with, another box with wheels, another drum, another spinner. What are people least likely to show up with? And we decided that was a hammer. So, and I had done hammer bots in the past in some of the smaller, classes, the club level classes that we do here, and they work pretty well. And I also think that a hammer bot can do well in the battle box. A hammer can self-right you, so it helps you that you can't be immobilized. So it really was. It was kind of based on that. It really didn't start with what would be the most destructive bot, or even what we thought would necessarily win. But so it was kind of multiple reasons.
Yeah, and you said that your origins for this sport trace all the way back to the beginning when you were competing against the guys that founded the whole thing, Greg and Trey. I mean, what initially got you into BattleBots? Like, you kind of one of the founding fathers at this point, and then what's kept you going the whole time?
At the time, I was racing RC cars. I had always been into radio control hobbies and models and that sort of thing, and I saw this little picture in the back of a magazine advertisement for this thing called Robot Wars in San Francisco, and there was this silly, fake picture of a chainsaw on top of an RC truck, and I was like, what is this all about? And then I think a year later, I saw a segment on a TV show about the first Robot Wars in San Francisco. And one thing led to another. The next year, me and a couple friends drove out there from New Jersey in an old mail truck, and we competed, and we've been doing it ever since.
It's a drug you can't quit, right?
Yeah, it's one of those. It gets in your blood, and I can't explain why. And when people ask me why I do this, I have no real good answer. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, my second match ever was actually against Greg and Trey. Greg and Trey of BattleBots was, they beat me handily in 8 seconds, and I've hated them ever since. But so yeah, we go back.
Wow. Have you tried to convince them to get a bot and get back in the ring with you, just to try to even up the score between you three?
I keep telling Greg every time to bring La Machine out, and we'll get back in the box and we'll do it again.
I'm still waiting for a cameo from Chinkilla, the Jay Leno bot, and John Remar said I was crazy. I was just like, man, the nostalgia alone, bring him back.
That would be awesome. I was there I was in 2000 also in Las Vegas, season 2, way back in the Comedy Central days.
Yeah.
And I don't believe he had Chinkilla there yet, but Jay had come out because he was just into it. He just liked it.
Yeah.
And he was there. He came to the pits. He said hi to everybody, and he was really cool.
Yeah, I asked Chris Rose, I said, if there was a bot that you would say was the most Kenny Florian bot ever, who would it be? And he said Petunia. And he's like, because there's no bot with fantastic hair, but Petunia is probably the next closest thing.
I thought Petunia was great in its first match. That bot worked incredible.
Yeah, which we're going to talk about that bot style as well as a few others here in a minute, but I wanted to get a bit more backstory on Blacksmith. Like I said, I'm a big fan of bots that have a good theme that works for them, because there's a lot of gimmicky bots out there, and I'm not saying that Witch Doctor is gimmicky or Sharko is gimmicky, but I mean, they go, they crank it to 11 on the costume and the decoration, and you just hope to God that they're effective out there. And for the most part, they are. Obviously, Witch Doctor has been great. Sharko has been very fun to watch. And then you have, Battle Royale with Cheese, which I think it looks better than it actually plays, but they've only had the one match, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But for you, it's called Blacksmith. It's got this hammer that blows fire, and it just goes out there, and you're a great driver. You pin them up, and you start swinging. I mean, was there any other inspiration or themes that you thought about going with? Like, where does Blacksmith originally come from other than just wanting a hammer on top of your bot?
Well, as far as the whole fire and Blacksmith, the name, the application process for season 2, they kind of stressed that they'd like to try to have bots have a theme. Mm-hmm. So we knew we wanted fire. In the beginning, I wasn't thinking Hammerhead. In fact, I was completely against putting it in the Hammerhead because I just thought it would be absurdly difficult to pull off. But my entire team said, no, that'll be great. And so I said, all right, well, you guys are going to have to figure it out. But, the whole flaming hammer, the name Blacksmith, fire, anvil, it just kind of all came together, and it seemed to be, it just seemed to work for us. And obviously, looking back, to put the flaming hammer is the best thing we could have possibly done. I mean, it's become our theme. It's what we're known for. It's pretty iconic at this point, and the response has just been great.
Yeah, you see it like everywhere when Battlebots is advertised. It's the still shot that you see on the background of so many of the advertisements for Discovery is the flaming hammer, and I think that's awesome that you guys were able to do that and go out there and also kick ass in the battle box. Now, you guys had a tough outing your first match, but then you went and you took on 3 bots at the same time, and I want to say it was a knockout, but I believe it came down to split decision in the final seconds, which I don't know how that was a split decision, because in my mind, I'm thinking you're going out there with a flaming hammer against 3 other bots, and your driving was magnificent, pinning them up against the walls and basically putting yourself in the driver's seat, pun intended, and winning that one. But let's talk a little bit about the different bot designs. What do you think about a design or a concept that is 4 horsemen, where it's not one but several bots that make up the required weight limit, and you're dealing with multiple drivers, multiple weapons for some of them, and then of course you have to watch yourself from all angles?
Exactly. It does. It presents an interesting challenge and sometimes a difficult challenge, because it's hard enough to focus on what your bot is doing, let alone your opponent, and then you throw in, okay, now there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Or 4 of them, because in season 2 we were in a qualifying rumble where we were up against 2 other opponents, and one of those opponents was a multi-bot with 2. So we have been in matches before with that many bots. But Ian's been doing this forever. He's also been doing it a long time, and he's great at the multi-bot thing. And those little spinners, I mean, we were actually surprised. They don't look like much, but they are no joke. they really do pack a punch, and they took some chunks out of our wedge, and our wedge is AR-500, and they did some damage to it.
Wow. So
it was definitely not a gimme. And in fact, we had a lot of radio problems during that match.
Oh, wow.
Right before the match. Yeah, right before when we first arrived, before any matches, we turned our radio on, we're doing some tests, and we had some weird glitches we never had before. And we thought we licked the problem. They didn't show up during the Bite Force match, but all of a sudden, right before the Full Horseman match, the glitches came back.
Oh, jeez.
And yeah, we were out by the test box up until they needed us in the arena. I believe they even may have reordered the matches. They were waiting for us, and we got it as best we could, and we went with it. So most people may not notice, but you could see during that match there are points where Blacksmith just stops and sits there.
Yeah,
that's not me. That's not me taking a break. That's the bot just deciding not to listen. So, and also when swinging the hammer, there's some times where it looks like I'm not swinging the hammer, and sometimes it's just not listening to me.
All right, so you mentioned... Oh, no, go ahead.
No, so we were actually pretty fortunate to pull out the win in that situation.
Yeah, it was very close. I do love that there's judges, and there's 3 of them, but sometimes I feel like they're looking for something that, quite frankly, just isn't there. Now, I don't know what that might be, but, I'm watching your match, and I'm thinking this guy's taking on 3 bots from all sides. He's out there with a flaming hammer, and he took care of them one at a time. And had it not been for where the clock was, I think it would have been possibly a knockout. And I just didn't know how that came down to a split decision. But hey, that's why I'm not a judge, or maybe why I should be a judge. Who knows? But that's one of the concepts that we've seen now, the multi-bot thing. We've got you with your hammer. We've got vertical, horizontal spinners. And then we've got bots like Petunia, which are the grappling bots. Now, I'm a big fan of the ones that plow because I love the pushing and shoving and everything going on out there, using the sort of your surroundings to your advantage. And when it comes to a bot like Petunia or a bot like, let's throw it out there. The one that just faced Minotaur, it was, Hypothermia. I mean, what do you think about these bots that grapple? Is it something that we're going to see die out? Because it's not entertaining, but of course that's not the point. But it doesn't seem to be very effective no matter how you do it.
It's a tough sell in the new format, I think, because they really rely on the arena hazards, and the arena hazards aren't all that active. In the old Comedy Central days, the arena reached a point where the arena was so powerful that people were losing to the bots, and I think they kind of toned that down because you really don't want to set the precedent of people using the box versus the bots fighting each other. And someone who was very good at that was Donald Hudson with Dissector, and his grappling bots he's the best at it. So he can pull it off, and it is a viable design and it can work. But they are leaning towards wanting more active weapons, more damage. So I do think you'll see less of that as we move forward.
Yeah, I think, what is it, Gamma 9? I think that's a hell of a concept. That thing is like a tank. I don't even think they need the grappling hook on there. But yeah, Donald Hudson's a great example, but I don't know if I would put Lockjaw in the category with the ones that grapple necessarily. But I think that Scorpios is a great example of a bot that can push as well as have an effective weapon with that saw that comes up and down on the tail. I just, I understand what they're wanting to do. You're wanting to leave it more to your driving ability and utilizing your surroundings and really just controlling the matchup. But these bots have such a unique design from one to the next that it's like, can you really design the perfect grappler that's going to take a hold of somebody like, a Minotaur or a Petunia or a Huge, I mean, it's tough to sort of say, I've got the perfect bot that's going to grab and control this one.
Right, and that's one of the toughest parts about designing any bot, because even though okay, Minotaur was there last year, but we have no idea of knowing when you show up that he doesn't have a totally different top that he puts on, or something like Huge shows up and no one knows what the hell to do with it. it's so big and it's so tall, and it can hit you from weird angles. And even in our case, like a hammer, it's like, all right, well, now are you down to like a half swing because you can't even hit the top of huge.
No, yeah.
You're planning on bots of the normal size or flat bots like Minotaur, where you get most of your swing in, or a saw bot like Saw Blaze or Scorpio. Same thing. It's like you run into like, wow, how do I deal with this? So you never know what's going to show up. Or somebody shows up with a shark, So.
Yeah, I got Edward Robinson coming on next. He's going to be exciting to talk to and entertain on here. But last question for you then, of course, it's the big one. How do you feel about the season so far, and what is your dream matchup for the season?
I think the season's been great so far. I think the new format really is better than just a straight tournament.
Yeah.
I do feel that I think there's more fights than there were last season because of this new format. You can just film more fights, so you have more fights to spread out. The flow seems better, at least from a builder standpoint. But it's pretty impossible for me to remove myself from that and watch it as an average viewer. But I believe it's a much better show now.
Now, let me ask you real quick before we get the dream matchup question answered, because you reminded me of one that I've asked a few people on here, both tenured and brand new to it, and they seem to have a similar opinion on it, but the fight card format where it's not a tournament style from start to finish where when you move on, lose, you're done. From someone who's as tenured as you are and been with it since pretty much the beginning, would you chalk up someone saying that it's unfair to ask us to fight this many fights before the actual tournament because we don't have enough equipment to go around or to last through the whole season as a rookie mistake? Or is that like a legitimate thing back there in the pits that any builder would argue is a disadvantage with this style?
I would have to say at this point that would be a rookie mistake because we kind of all know what we're getting into. We knew the format was going to change, and even with a straight tournament, spare parts, and we're even drifting into the territory of spare bots at this point. We used 2 frames at this event, something we had never done before.
Wow!
We actually had parts for almost 3 full bots. Not so much with the components and everything, but we had 2 complete frames when we showed up, and we had extra hammer assemblies, and we had parts for a 3rd frame. So we anticipated, using multiple frames if need be, and in fact we did. So moving forward, this is the highest level of this sport. So you need to be prepared in any way possible. That means multiple bots, multiple frames, dozens of spare motors. That's just the way it is.
Fair enough, and I figured that would be your response. I'm glad that you put it out there that way because I'm like, I understand the concern, but at the same time, it's like, this is testing the depth of your bench. If it's a sports team, it's like who's your next man up and your next best guy. So, dream matchup. For me, I say I'd love to see you against Don Hudson, a couple of veteran drivers out there with some unique bot designs and styles, trying to control the fight and push each other around. But what's your dream matchup?
I would welcome something like that to be in the arena with Donald. That's something I would consider an honor because I've been watching him since he started, and we started around the same time. I saw his original Casbot goes way back to Robot Wars as well. And he always brings great quality machines to the box, and he's just an amazing driver. He can drive bots with like 37 channels and make it look easy. But one of our other dream matches was to fight Warhead, and we do that later in the season. So
hey, there we go. And don't worry about any spoilers. We all know about the NDAs here, so we'll leave it at that. We do get a Al Kindle dream matchup later this season. Well, Al, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to be my guest on the show. I know that a lot of you guys aren't used to doing this, but trust me when I say that the pleasure is all mine on this end, getting to know you guys and just what goes into building bots. So best of luck the rest of the season, and I look forward to talking with you later on as the season progresses.
Sure, I'd love to come back, and thanks for having me again.
Hey, not a problem at all. You have a good night.
You too. Take care.
All right, that was once again Al Kindle of Blacksmith, and man, that bot is fun to watch. If you haven't seen Battlebots yet, go and watch the Blacksmith fight from this last episode, or watch the whole thing. It's got huge in there too, which is so entertaining. But we're going to talk to the man behind the shark. He's a shark enthusiast. He's a former carny, and we're going to get him on the phone right now. Edward Robinson is up next on The Fan Show right after this. You're listening to The Fan Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's The Fan Show.
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Ranazisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons. Like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo. Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again. So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right? Yeah. And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com, or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with part 2 of my double shot of all steel and metal and everything robot fighting time is, with a man who is a former sword swallower who now takes out his aggression through a shark that swims amongst the fishes that is all the other bots in the battle box. It is Edward Robinson. How you doing, Ed?
I'm doing great, matey. How you doing, Richard?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I still think you were probably one of my favorite parts of the experience of being down there for the tapings, just because, you're so different from all the rest, and your approach to this whole thing is so unique. You use recycled parts for Sharko. You're a former carny and performer on the traveling circuit with swallowing swords, and you're just so much fun to interact with, and then see your bot out there in action. I mean, it's just it's really something to look back on and now watch play out on Discovery. How has your reception been amongst the fans since the season started?
Well, I tell you what, Richard, I have an art bot, and it's very, very out of the box. It's something nobody really, it's a tube stuck on its side. It's something that nobody's ever seen before, and they look at it and go, okay, that's really pretty, but that's gonna suck, man.
Well, it's nothing shy of entertaining for sure. I think Sharko is a lot of fun to watch out there, and of course that was part of the bonus content on the Science Channel network that we had after the first week. But
that was so fun, that Rumble. It's all about bringing them alive and fighting that Kraken. It was really a fun fight. It was like a science fiction TV movie Rumble.
Yeah, and I love that some of the matchups almost seemed themed that way. You guys and Kraken in that Rumble, a lot of fun to watch. And your shark, it swims out there. And when I first saw it, I honestly thought it was a gimmick, that it was just hanging up there for people to go and take pictures with, which a lot of people did. And then I watch it go out there, and it's such a thing to see it come to life, Oh,
yeah, when we hung it up in the pits for the day, so everybody can take pictures. Yeah. Well, most people don't see how big they are. And he's over 6 foot long. And when you hang him up on the wall, he's taller than everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I remember Greg Munson's post about that with his pose with Sharko and how tall Greg is.
Yeah. That's a real honor to have the founders of Battlebots there posing next to the shark, I tell you what.
Oh, it's okay. But I think for this season, with its new fight format, obviously we get to see bots like yours out there, and they don't have to worry about being a one and done. We're going to get several doses of Sharko. And so you got to watch episode 1.
Sharko!
and you got to watch this whole thing play out. How's it been from a bot builder fan standpoint, which is technically
I tell you
what
what, I started in 2000, was my very first robot fighting event was Battlebots back in 2000 in Treasure Island, what we call the Battlebots Classic. And that was one and done. You paid your own way, you paid your own hotel, you paid your own gas, you paid an entry fee that could be several $100s to go fight. And you lose one fight and you're out. You're done. Now, with this new format, it was amazing. We got quite a few really great fights.
Yeah, I agree, because I got to see one of them, and I don't believe that one's happened yet, but that was a very entertaining fight.
Yeah,
so.
Don't say anything then yet.
yeah, those NDAs, we've been talking about them every episode.
They
now.
actually just made me a moderator on the Battlebots forum, so I have to enforce the NDAs.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of like giving the fox the key to the hen house.
Well, hey, you've been very interactive with me on social media. It's good to hear that you're one of the moderators on the forum. How have you liked the weekly top 10 that I came up with?
I love it. You know, I'm an entertainer, and I love everything about social networking. It's the sideshow business that I was raised on really is having a hard way of it. And social media is about the next best thing to sideshow. It's just as bizarre. It's just as freaky. It's just as dark in places.
Yeah, that's like the weirdest way to describe it, but it fits it so perfectly.
I mean, really, it is just a new sideshow, and so I'm just still making my living off the sideshow like I always do.
Hey, you know, that works. It's whatever works. So, okay, you got to piece this together for me. How do you go from swallowing swords in the circus to building a robot out of recycled parts and making it look like a shark?
The abridged version, I'm going to try to make it short, but it's really hard to do. I ran away with the circus to be a circus clown. I did that until I was the producing clown on the largest three-ring circus in the country, Great American Circus.
Oh.
After that, I went on the Renaissance Festival circuit for quite a few years, doing sword swallowing, fire eating, fire breathing. The Renaissance fairs were just what I really loved doing. And in the meantime, I did the sideshow thing. Doing the Renaissance fairs and everything else, I learned how to do sword fighting. And I love steel, which is obvious. I mean, it's in the intro to Battlebots. I love steel. I make armor. So I started making steel armor. So when I saw Battlebots, it was like, oh, I love steel. I could make a Battlebot. And my first one was a little dragon head lightweight that got killed within 30 seconds.
So how'd you get...
17 years ago, yeah.
Because I could have figured, I was like, I could see him making a dragon bot because of the Renaissance thing, you know. But
absolutely, I still have a dragon in mind. Robot X was my first lightweight, and it was a dragon head, and I want to bring him back as a heavyweight.
So how'd you get to sharks then? Where's that link?
The shark originally came by at Robotica Season 2. My teammate John and I got that, and they wanted something original, so I came up with the shark.
Wow.
It was just one of those things where I was working at a scrapyard. I had a whole bunch of propane tanks and wheelchair motors laying around, so it was one of those things that was easy to put together out of scrap. First, the tail was fabric. Then the tail had fishing tubes and hoses and elastic and Velcro in it like an entanglement device. But then when I built it for Battlebots, they don't allow entanglement.
Yeah.
And I needed a spinner device, a spinner defense. So I put the tail on there to fight spinners with.
Wow. And it's worked out very nicely for you since. I think...
can't really say against spinners. I've only fought a drum bot and a clamper. And clampers are my weakness. You know, Kraken really got a good bot on me a couple times.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he didn't use denture paste because shark skin is tough, man. Shark skin is tough.
So I was talking with Al Kindle earlier about good themes for bots, right? Themes more so than gimmicks, and there is a difference. So you have like the gimmicky bots, and your name came up, but not in like a negative sense. I think that a lot of people look at Sharko like it's a gimmick, but when it's out there, it's effective, it's entertaining, it's fun to watch. So with you, is it going to be where we see a different animal bot from you all the time, or would you ever go with like a more generic design? Like, is this Edward Robinson that we're seeing in full swing?
Yeah, you'll never see me build a weapon on wheels. It's just not going to happen.
Awesome.
I'm an artist. I mean, I've swallowed swords for a living for over 20 years. I'm not normal. I don't do normal. That's just not my flavor.
Wow. I love it. I really do. I don't think there's anything negative about that at all. In fact, I encourage it because I think, it's one thing to have a gimmick like Battle Royale with cheese and then to have that not work. Now, they've only been in the one fight. I
love those guys, and they're going to learn a lot. I learned a lot every single fight. You always do.
Yeah.
There's nothing like experience to teach you.
Yeah, and so I think they're going to right their wrongs, and they're going to get back out there, and they're going to give it another go. But
absolutely,
I love Ray, and I love the Tombstone. It's funny he's a villain on TV because he's one of the nicest guys I interacted with.
That's so funny. It's so incongruous because he is such a nice guy.
He is. He's such a nice guy, and I love what Tombstone is and how effective it is, but I really do miss like sort of a theme or like some kind of dress up with them. I'm not saying they have to go full out, but even if they had like the jumpsuits.
Ray's got his thing, and he's the champion. He can back it up. That's his thing.
That is his thing, very much.
That is his thing. It's like he can walk in with Queen playing in the background. We are the champions, and everybody bows. Yeah, you're right. Like it used to be when Mark Satrakian would walk in the arena.
Yeah.
Everybody just steps aside and goes, yes, sir. There you go, sir. It's just one of those things.
There's a lot of teams out there, though, like Don Hudson with Lockjaw, and then, of course, Mike Jeffries with Chaos Cores and Bombshell, that they look like they just got done. They just wrapped up a bowling tournament, and now they're going to fight in the Battlebots because they've got those.
Bombshell was so slick. Their outfits were so perfect, period. Well, I used to do, and there's pictures of me from back in 2000, 2001, full pirate. I'd wear tights at Battlebots every day.
How did I miss
pictures
that?
Of me hanging out at Fuzzy's table, and we're sitting there with jaw jacking. I'm there with tights and a big puffy pirate shirt and a 2-foot-long feather sticking out of my puffy hat.
Wow.
I kind of toned it down this year, but we toned it down too far. We were going for the Jimmy, but kind of chilling on fishing boat look because it was a shark. This year we're going to tone it up and make some nice military-style uniforms and call it the Robotic Marine Force.
Wow.
Bring it up to a whole different, bring it back up a little bit, but not to pirate. Pirates, I've been there, done that.
So who's your dream matchup then for this season?
That's a hard question for me to answer because walking in the door I was an alternate, remember, and I was promised a pit table and a fight. I asked for one fight, and I got it. So I can't say what my dream fight was because it was my dream fight that I asked for. And I got the fight, and I know it will be eventually aired. So I can't answer that question. I can just say I got my dream fight. I walked in there asking for one specific fight, and they gave it to me, and by God, they gave it to me.
Fair enough. All right. So we'll have to talk to you after that fight then to get your reaction to how it was having your dream fight, which
I think that was when I first met you. Yep.
Yeah. No, I think it probably was down there towards the end, which, this whole new fight card format and everything, I love it. It's so entertaining. I love tuning in each week knowing that anything can happen and that it doesn't affect the next week's episode really at all until we get to the tournament, which will be a whole thing in itself. So this has been so much fun to watch and be a part of.
Somebody like me that's really good at rebuilding after a fight and has armor the way I have it, it really helps me out because I have time to rebuild. I could take a fight, get damaged up pretty good, rebuild it, be ready for the next fight, get a day, rebuild it, be ready for the next fight. It's a really great format the way they got it now.
You were probably the one that had, I think, one of my favorite quotes the whole time that I was down there, and that was when I got to drive around in the boxcar, and you said
the box,
the boxcar, and you said to me, "We got $30,000 worth of robotic equipment, and everybody wants to drive around in the damn box."
If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And my partner John came up with that box for a little video skit that he did a long time ago, and it's just been one of those things that you never know what's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
You never know, and everybody loves the box. We have to take the box everywhere. The box is amazing.
Yeah, and it's funny because you and I are on a very similar level when it comes to that box. Because here you've got Sharko and your $30,000 of equipment, and everybody wants to drive around in the box. And I see profile pictures, including my own, of people in your box. And then I have me and my show, which I put so much time, effort, and money into the show and its production, and I've got this belt with me, and all people care about is the damn belt. I'll see profile pictures of people with it.
That's exactly the way it is, too. You never know what people are going to latch on to, but they latch on to certain things.
Yeah, it's been so entertaining and so eye-opening, the whole experience. But yeah, I couldn't have had a better time down there in Battlebots if I wasn't short of competing myself, which I've been sketching out some rough designs.
Really should. I saw you talking about that, and I tell you what, all we got to do is find us a sponsor. I hope you build a nice bot.
Yeah, because I got a concept in mind. I think it would be entertaining and effective. So I'm gonna.
You got to put lasers on it, and lots of explosives, and you want at least 2 big spinning weapons and magnets, electromagnets. Yeah.
Yeah,
and a fog machine
and projectiles, cannons. Like Double Jeopardy.
Well, you can have projectiles now.
Yep.
I think confetti cannons would be about as effective, but.
Confetti cannons for victory.
Confetti cannons, everybody would have fun.
Yeah. So I'm finishing sketching that out, and I'll post that. But I think confetti cannons for if I ever manage to win, or even if I lose, and there's enough left to just fire those cannons after the fight.
That's one of the things I make as a prop maker is confetti cannons. It's just so funny. People don't expect confetti cannons. It's like nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody expects you to put a confetti cannon and blast it. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's very fun, and well, I tell you, it's been entertaining to say the very least, and I love being part of being part of the Battlebots family. So I'm going to keep doing my thing here, and you guys are always fun to talk to. And I got a video segment with you, and so you're kind of a step ahead of everybody else that's been featured on the show. But of course, I can't keep you off the show because you're just too damn fun to talk to. So. All right, well, Ed, I thank you so much for your time, for talking BattleBots and every other random thing going on out there in the world, and how social media is the new sideshow traveling circus. But, hey, thank you again. You have a great rest of your night, and best of luck the rest of the season.
All right, have a great day.
You too. That was Ed Robinson of Sharko, the former carny and sideshow attraction, swallowing swords and Renaissance fair. God, that is like the most random origin of a competitive bot fighter out there. But I love these guys and their characters. And that's not even like his character. Will Bales and being something straight out of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, that's not even his character. Like, that's how he really is. But Ray Billings definitely is a character on TV. He plays the villain, and he plays it very well. But like Ed said, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. You got to meet these people because they're a lot of them are awesome. Some of the guys that are portrayed nice are actually kind of I don't know. I won't say who because it's just my opinions are what they are. Like I said, I didn't have the greatest experience with Lou Ferrigno when he was at Lilac City Comic Con. That doesn't mean he's a dick to everybody. It just meant that maybe I caught him on the wrong day at the wrong time. Maybe he doesn't like media. Maybe he doesn't like me. I don't know. But fact is that everybody's experiences can be different. They usually are different. Nobody can meet... Like, The Rock, perfect example. The dude is like the center of the universe right now when it comes to pop culture. Am I right? And I'm sure that with all the good things that he does and how entertaining and funny and friendly he is, like his movies, more of them bomb than are box office hits, right? And only The Rock could bomb in that many movies and still be one of the hottest commodities in the world today as far as with pop culture, cinema, acting, entertainment, whatever. But that doesn't mean that everybody likes him. That doesn't mean that everybody has to like him. I like The Rock. I always have. But back in his wrestling days, okay? So there's that point of reference. Back when he was a wrestler and strictly a wrestler and still had hair, and before he looked as jacked as he is now, before The Rock made The Rock look like a weak little bitch, I was a fan of The Rock, and I still am. I love what he does for his fans and out in the public eye, and I hope that it goes beyond just the public eye. I really do. I think he's a great father. I think he's a great individual. But not everybody has to like The Rock, and not everybody does like The Rock. And that's just the way the world works. I like Ed Robinson because I think he's entertaining and fun. That doesn't mean everybody's going to like Ed Robinson. That doesn't mean everybody's going to like Sharko. But I hope you do, and I hope you guys tune into Battlebots this Friday on the Discovery Channel at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific time. And, of course, you can catch bonus material on the Science Channel airings every Wednesday night. And that's tonight. So, want to thank all of you once again for joining me. That's our Wednesday double shot of robot fighting time on this Fan Show Wednesday. So, thank you all again for tuning in. Don't forget you can subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com as well. You can listen live on Spreaker or thefanshow.com. And shirts, they're going fast. I sold out of another batch, so I got to go pick up some more shirts this Friday. If you want one, hit me up, please. Okay, we don't have online marketplace set up yet. This is very humble beginnings for selling merch. Okay, we had the Teespring thing set up, and that was just not ideal. So these ones, they come straight from me. I have looked at them. I have approved them. I have worn them, and I even send out a nice personal thank you note to those of you that ordering them that I cannot physically deliver them to you. So go and reach out to me. Twitter at FanShowOfficial. Facebook, facebook.com/FanShowOfficial. Instagram, The Fan Show. Snapchat, The Fan Show. And then, of course, you can email me, richard@thefanshow.com. There's so many ways to get a hold of me to get me your info to get a shirt that there's no excuse to not have a shirt. So I look forward to seeing those of you that have placed your orders and have paid. Those shirts they were delivered, or they were sent out, and they are out for delivery this week. I'm excited to see those pictures of you guys in your new Team Fan Show merch. Thank you very, very much. We will be back tomorrow night. All new episode of The Fan Show. Hopefully Amir Ishmael will join me. We got Jake Medlock locked in, though. Drew Powell could not make it this week due to some scheduling conflicts. So he will be on next week as we get ready for the IFL playoffs. But thank you all so much once again. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, best of luck to you and yours. Go Niners, and it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night, folks.
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the Fan Show.